The zoo hypothesis proposes that higher intelligences may be monitoring Earth. This intelligence would shy away from direct contact with us. Its behavior would be completely mysterious to us as zoo animals. A provocative hypothesis that was put forward to explain why there is no official contact between humans and UAP occupants. That is exactly what a new study suggests, which has found interesting patterns in UAP activities around the world. That's what we are talking about now. Welcome, Dr. Eamonn Ansbro. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Robert.
Excellent. You are an astronomer and a senior SETI researcher who started investigating UAP in 1990 in Europe. You are a member of ICER, the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. You are a fellow at the Royal Astronomical Society. You are a member of SCU, the Scientific Coalition for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, and several other scientific organizations. And you have recently co-authored a study about potential patterns in UAP activity, which you presented at the American Geophysical Union recently, and which is going to be published shortly. So what did you find?
We discovered after considerable amount of research on this, that the UAPs, or UFOs, the old name, has a pattern which suggests actually that there is a monitoring program going on. And we've discovered that the orbital period for the UAPs is 65 minutes. This confirms actually old research we did some years ago. So this is based on not just the US continent, but also the whole world as well. The US continent would be using the NUFORC database, where the whole world is using, we used Hatch, which was very reliable as well.
And so how many UFO sightings have you taken into account, and have you made sure that those are not of terrestrial origin?
Yes, we had to eliminate an enormous amount of reports because the criteria was reliability. The reliability means we had to have, number one, multiply witnessed, number two, radar, number three, it had to be filming minimum of 10 minutes. So you can imagine if you're going back to 1940, there was less of, the filming and radar. But certainly in the last 20 or 30 years, there's been a lot of reports.
I see. So how many cases have you taken into account in total?
We took into account 110,000 in total between NUFORC and Hatch. But then we eliminated majority of those reports and narrowed it down to, as I explained to you, the criteria that we were looking for. I mean, we weren't getting the perfect reports for the criteria. We weren't getting, say, radar, but we got film footage. Or we got the minimum would be multiply witnessed, and that would be acceptable as well.
I see. So, and it's only if you look at large quantities of UAP data that you find patterns. And can you explain it to me again as a layman? What does it mean? What exactly is the pattern that you discovered?
Yes. What we're looking for, based on the hypothesis that I was putting forward some years ago, and this was the zoo hypothesis, monitoring the Earth. If that's the case, then can we see patterns that would suggest that? So you would extrapolate data like the maneuverability of the UFO, the velocity of the UFO, and such like. So we managed to get the velocities on a lot of the reports, through radar or filming, and then we also got the multiple witness side of it. And then in more recent times, we got thermal imaging as well to back that up.
And so, so what exactly did you find out then?
Well, what we found is that in the not just the UFOs that were at low altitudes, the ones that most people see, but even from a military point of view, and not just in the US, but also in Europe and the Far East as well, that at high altitude, the UFOs are appearing at very high altitude. So we managed to get data on the direction of the movement. Which it was what was common was ascending and descending in a vertical sort of movement. So that was very useful, which also suggested that we may be dealing with UAPs that are on the outer fringes of the Earth. That is, in the not as high as LEOs, low Earth orbiting satellites, which would be around 100 kilometers to 400 kilometers, but it could be less than that. Could be about 70 or 80 kilometers. So the hypothesis would suggest that they're using some sort of, we'll call it, I know people have been using the word mothership, but, some sort of supercraft, which ejects these probes. And that's the hypothesis I've been going on for quite a while. I think this is how they're doing it. So they'd have a programmed monitoring going on, but in a controlled way, so that the larger craft, which, by the way, we discovered also that in the reports, they do stealth themselves. They create invisibility as well. So you can have probably, say, a large supercraft. It could be, some hundreds of meters across, maybe, and then it ejects these UFOs on a particular track. And these are the ones that we see, like certainly the military and also people on the ground. And then they're only around maybe only for a few minutes on average. And there could be a number of them actually spaced out along the track or in the general area of the track. If there's something of interest by the UFOs, the UFO nauts or the intelligence, it seems that they go off track. Now, this is only a theory I've been working on for a while now. For example, going off track would mean if there was something of interest like nuclear silos, and that has been the case because I found that even in those reports, they don't seem to fit the research that I'm doing. So I think that's like an additional thing, that there's something of interest for the UFOs. It also, I think that I think it's all to do with the Earth. I don't think it's just mankind. I think it's everything. I think there's. I would go on the basis that the interest is of everything to do with the Earth. We are of interest as the Earth, as an organism, you could say.
So, let me get this straight. So you're suggesting that the UAP are orbiting around the Earth at these angles, and they make the round in about 66 minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And they're doing that to observe, to monitor the Earth, but not only that. You're suggesting that the hypothesis may actually not be enough to explain the behavior of UAP, and that they are actually interacting with things as well. The laboratory analysis.
Yes, that would be the extended version, the laboratory hypothesis. So they're experimenting as well. I don't mean in a nefarious way, but I think maybe actually for the Earth's benefit, and we're part of the Earth. That's what I'm suggesting. Okay,
so laboratory. Can you put it again in words? What's the laboratory analysis?
Okay, this is a new extension to the zoo I'm proposing, whereby, for example, you'd have intervention where we're not as, from the point of view of mankind, we may not be aligned to for our planetary affairs. So if you take, for example, the nuclear side, nuclear silos and nuclear power stations, there's a lot of interest by the UFOs in that area. That has been proven actually over the last 70 years. That's just an example of that. Now, obviously, there's interaction with humans as well, because even with governments, I feel myself, because the monitoring of everything, including not just populations, but the governments that we vote in, so to speak. I don't think governments are the right, how shall I put it, entities as a core conglomerate to deal with this. And that's why I think actually it makes more sense that they've gone to human beings on the ground, individuals, and there's an enormous amount of cases. There are some thousands altogether. The most interesting ones for us, actually, when we're doing this research, and I actually presented this in Hesterland there just 3 months ago to a conference there in September, is that we need to include the contactees. I think they're really important in the whole scheme of things. Unfortunately, science in the last 200 years hasn't evolved that way. It's all mechanistic. We need to bring in the experiential into this. So because now actually there is interest now, as you probably know, in the last year or so, that there's a consciousness factor involved.
I mean, why is it that no scientists have discovered this before? They're putting up cameras everywhere, and when you talk to scientists, or when you have talked to scientists, they would always say, "Well, we cannot reproduce this phenomenon. It's elusive." How did you manage to overcome this?
Well, I've done similar work to other scientists. Well, very few of them, of course. Very similar to what Hesterland established there back in the 80s. I was getting data through specifically designed detection systems at specific locations where there's a high frequency of UFOs. So you have a cross range which is common throughout the world, that's dealing with the orbs right into cylindrical and the flying saucer, classic flying saucer type shape, and the triangle. But those are much more rare, so to speak. What I did discover is that I actually had done 150 case studies way back in the 90s to try and understand what this was about. Because I was approaching it from a mechanistic point of view, but then I was discovering with all these cases after a while that there's a consciousness connection to this, which I never expected. So I can understand scientists wouldn't be open to entertain something like this, because I also realized in dealing with other scientists, and I do respect everybody where they're at, is that there's a psychological perception problem here. So you really have two worldviews, actually. The main worldview, which is very much materialistic, and then you have the other worldview, which is dealing with a larger reality. You could say that we were already way back up to 200 years ago. We did have metaphysics. Scientists were, researching, which included metaphysics, that is dealing with the real reality of everything in life. But unfortunately, there was a cultural transformation from, say, around the 1830s onwards, that it was becoming a lot more materialistic.
Yeah, and something seems to be moving here. There seems to have been some progress lately. I saw that you also contributed to another mega UAP paper, which appeared here on archive.org, which is going to be published, or which is already published, the new science of unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena, co-authored, among others, by Gary Nolan, Peter Skafish Arlingstrand from Norway, Michel Vaillant from Japan, Hakan Kayal from the German University of Würzburg, and yourself and many other important researchers. What does that tell you about the progress that has been made in recent years about, in the investigation of the phenomenon, in the scientific research of it?
Yeah, it's really thanks to what's been happening there in recent years, opening up this arena. Some of us were already in this research going way back, and it was actually good that the main author, Kevin Knuth, approached me, invited me into this, because we had met at a conference in the UK to deal with SETI, and he hadn't realized that I did a lot of work in this area. But of course, I never had presented any material because I had been banned, from conferences, and I've had papers rejected and so forth. But it doesn't affect me emotionally, because if you're dealing with the truth, and I also respect every scientist and everybody in the world that we do have a psychological perception problem here, and until people are ready for this, then to be able to integrate this reality for the future.
Yeah, talking about integrating it into our reality, what do you think will be the repercussions for mankind too, if they understand that we are being monitored by some, let's call it automatic control system or meta-human control system, as Jacques Vallée coined it? I mean, what do you think is going to be the repercussions?
Well, I think it's rather like Carl Nell said, it's a slow disclosure instead of a dramatic one, catastrophic one. So, yeah, I think like anything in life that, with anthropologists who study, say, a new tribe, it's, there's a prime directive there, and it's a slow transition until you make the actual contact and then integrate the reality that the tribe realizes, that there's other human beings and another world out there. I know there's all sorts of implications in this one, because there's we're relying on our comfort zone on the earth, and all the stuff we deal with. That I'm not saying this is uncomfortable for people, but for some people it could be who have hard beliefs. Hard beliefs are different to soft beliefs. Hard beliefs would be those into the extreme religious sort of areas, for example, where soft beliefs, where there's no, they're open for realizing religion is man-made situation, but it does support the stability of people around the world, of course, having religions. But I think it's the opening up to this larger reality. So, I mean, there have been, surveys going way back as to the implications. The Bolton Institute back in '61, it wasn't too good, that one. But I think it's very different now with the new young generations coming in. I find them really open for all this. I think it's all the older brethren, will have a hard time on this one. So I think it's a phased transition that we could be dealing with here.
Okay.
So the implications would be less harsh, we'll put it that way. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Interesting times ahead. Thank you so much, Dr. Eamonn Ansbro.
Thank you, Robert. Pleasure again.